What is going on, guys, and welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about why Storm Spirit's win rate under Immortal bracket is 50% and every other bracket is lower than that. It's about 48% across all MMRs. I definitely want to break this down, as Storm Spirit is one of my favorite mid lane heroes, but I definitely feel like there's a big curve on how to play this hero, because even in pro level pubs you see that Storm Spirits end up making a lot of mistakes because you end up thinking you have enough mana to go for the dive, but once you're stranded out there without any mana, this hero's practically a creep. Becomes very difficult to play unless you have big buffers like Coddle or Pugna to refill your mana pool. If you don't play with steroids like that, or even Io, then you're definitely out on an island. Definitely have to be careful with your mana pool, as it's pretty much the key to playing Storm Spirit properly is to know exactly when you can go for a dive and how far you can outreach, how much mana you can spend before getting out, because the whole point of this hero is to be able to zip in, get a kill, and get out and reset again. And making the reset with a support hero like Coddle is definitely much better for you, as you can get away from ganks because you have more mana pool at your disposal. Storm Spirit is a very good hero against Sniper, Zeus, Bat Rider, Bloodseeker, and Ancient Apparition. Bloodseeker being very prevalent in the meta, and so is Bat Rider. Sniper, not so much. He's not being picked as much as he was before. Zeus has kind of died down a little bit. I don't remember the last time I saw Zeus in one of my pubs. There's definitely a few builds that are going around for Zeus with the phylactery that are definitely strong, but it's definitely not a hero people are paying attention to. Ancient Apparition has been a pretty strong support lately, but he's definitely food for Storm, as Storm can blow him up quite quickly, as he's a very squishy hero. But one of the things I feel like why Storm has kind of fallen off grace a little bit is because Pavis is a really good item right now, and supports are just so tanky with their builds that it makes it hard for Storm Spirit, because he has to commit so much mana just to get a support kill, never mind a core kill, because they're being buffed by the supports, especially in the mid game. In the early game, pretty much nobody has early farm, but Storm doesn't really have a big mana pool, so that's really the problem. You have to get a nice arcane rune or a double damage rune or even a haste rune that'll definitely help you get that rotation and spend less mana and be able to reset back into the mid lane, because if you spend your entire mana pool, you have to go back to base or buy some regen so you can go back to the mid lane, unless you gank properly and you gank around the rune timings and your supports leave the bounty runes for you to be able to reset after a gank. Then it doesn't feel as bad. But if you got a support kill and then you have to go back to base, that's a lot of farm you're losing on the map, because if you have no mana, you're not really farming. Storm's right click is kind of weak without items, so it's definitely not a great feeling. Storm is also pretty terrible against Meepo, Lone Druid, Anti-Mage, Silencer, and Riki. Lone Druid's pretty strong in the current meta, doesn't have a high pick rate, but if you see a Lone Druid, definitely don't pick Storm, as you really don't do anything to this hero. You don't threaten the bear, you don't threaten the main Druid, especially after level 6, you really don't do anything to that hero, so definitely don't pick it. Meepo is definitely insanely strong in the meta. I think he has the highest win rate right now across the higher MMR tiers, so it's definitely not something you want to play up against. Anti-Mage has been a little prevalent in the meta, but he has died down a little bit after the tournaments have happened with Pro League, so it's definitely not as good as he was before. Silencer can be food, but it becomes very difficult if you don't jump him, so you will most likely be baited by the Silencer, as that is your main target in a team fight, because Global absolutely destroys you, so you're kind of forced to buy an Orchid to be able to blow him up quickly. Riki is not as good as he was before, but he's definitely being picked here and there, and Smokescreen has always been such a great tool to destroy the Storm Spirit, as he doesn't have very high mobility without his ultimate, so it could definitely be quite problematic for him if you're running into a mid Riki or a support Riki, which can definitely happen, as it has quite a bit of utility going towards it. The item build I definitely recommend on this hero is Treads, Kaya, Witchblade, and then you go for a BKB or Lincoln's. But if you're having a snowbally game, you're winning your lane, you got your ganks set up, and you have a few kills going for you, I definitely recommend for you to rush Kaya and stack the nearby camps. It's such an important thing. You might lose 1 or 2 creeps in the creep wave, but if you shove them into the tower, you can definitely go get yourself a stack and then keep stacking it over and over again until you can go get your stack at level 6, and then it's definitely worth it to go back to base and refill, and then you can go for a gank, as they're expecting you to be in the jungle and they don't know exactly where you are. You can make a really good rotation. That's definitely a good plan, and it's something that I do every game pretty much. If I'm snowballing, I tend to go for that build. It's very strong. Kaya is a really big power timing for Storm, as his mana regen becomes really good, and his mana amplification, it's also incredible. So your bottle's going to be giving you much more mana than it did before. Your clarities, everything's going to be amplified, so it's definitely very strong on a hero like Storm. Then you go for the Witchblade to get yourself some damage. And I definitely love Revenant's Brooch. Revenant's Brooch is pretty much my favorite item on Storm Spirit right now. It is quite expensive. Some people tend to ignore the Kaya, but I feel like it's an item on Storm that you definitely can't ignore. You need to buy this item every single game, and then you can go back for an item like Witchblade. It is a little bit on the greedier side, but it's definitely going to pay itself off. Another item I've definitely been trying out is the Yasha Kaya. I feel like if you're going against agility cores, it's such a really good item. And if you don't need the status resistance from Sanj, then you're definitely better off going for this build. You're a lot speedier. So if you're up against a support that's definitely not that fast, you don't need to zip in to control them. You can just walk up to them because you're so fast by having Yasha on your side. It's definitely very good and a very underrated build. I don't see many Storm Spirits building it. I understand Kaya Sanj is definitely the better pick overall in most games, but it's definitely a situational pick that you got to keep in mind. The extra agility is also very good, and the movement speed is fantastic on Storm, as you're faster and you don't need to be zipping as much, so it's a lot of mana that you are not throwing away. Falcon Blade is also very interesting. It honestly depends. I definitely feel like it sets back your Kaya timing way too much to go for it, but if you don't plan on going for a Witchblade or an Orchid and you just want to run Kaya with Falcon Blade, it's definitely strong. You won't have as much right click damage and as much control, but you do have some really good mana regen going for you with the Kaya, so it's definitely very strong if you're playing for a late game oriented timing. Then you can definitely go for that. Overall, I definitely think that this hero is still really strong in the meta if being played correctly. And that is pretty much why I think his win rate is not super low, but it's definitely not great. It's pretty much because players are not playing him correctly and just losing games, as he's a very difficult hero to pick up. I think Ember is very easy to play. I think Void Spirit is also a little bit easy to play, but Storm is just definitely hard. It's kind of like Earth Spirit. They're both very difficult heroes to play and get value out of them, as if you're not a proficient Storm Spirit player, you're not going to get as much value around the map, and you're definitely going to overextend and feed. So it could definitely be a big problem, and that's why his win rate is a little bit hindered. I definitely feel like he's in a really good spot in the current meta. Definitely let me know in the comment section below what do you guys think about Storm Spirit in the current meta. I definitely think he's quite strong, but big problems is he's not a lane dominator, and he is a little bit on the greedier side, very rune dependent. So if your team is not helping you secure these very necessary power runes, you can definitely be in a little bit of trouble, but you can definitely recover in the jungle. But hopefully your side lanes are doing well enough where they can afford their mid laner to be going into the jungle and taking up all that farm and space that the carry should be farming. So you definitely got to keep that in mind. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. A like would be much appreciated. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.